Hello everyone, my name is Kenton Kivestu. I'm an ex-BCG consultant, an ex-Googler, and the founder of Rocketblocks, an online platform that helps candidates prepare for interviews. In today's Rocketblocks mini lesson, we're going to answer the question, do I need an MBA to be a management consultant? And the very quick and easy answer is no. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about three paths, three entry points into the career path of management consulting that don't require having an MBA. So let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so let's talk about the first path, which is directly out of undergrad. Now, by definition, if you're coming directly out of undergrad into a consulting role, you do not have a MBA, which stands for Masters of Business Administration. And these firms do hire directly out of undergrad. McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Accenture, Deloitte, and a host of others hire directly from a handful of undergrad institutions across the world. Now, the caveat is these roles are selective and they're highly competitive. So even if you are at a good school where one of these companies is recruiting on campus or a target school, they show up every year, they interview students. For example, you might be at a school like UVA, which is a target office for some of the Bain East Coast offices, and maybe 500 students apply, 50 get an invite to do a first round interview, and something like 10 might actually get offers, 5 to 10. So if you do that math quickly, that's about a 1 to 2% offer rate. So again, very, very competitive, but it is definitely possible these firms do hire directly out of undergrad. Okay, let's talk about the second path, which is directly out of grad school. Now, if we were chatting about this particular bucket 10 or 15 years ago, it basically wouldn't exist because all of the grad school students that these firms were hiring 15 years ago were basically MBAs with a few anomalies. But today, that's different. They still hire a ton of MBA students. Don't get me wrong about that. But there's opportunities for all sorts of other grad degrees to pop into the recruiting filter. So for example, they hire, companies like McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Accenture, Deloitte, they hire out of law schools, they hire out of medical schools is another big one. Healthcare is a third of the US economy alone. So all of these firms have big healthcare practices, and you can imagine that some of the specialized knowledge that you'd pick up in medical school can be really useful context for these jobs. So that's another big one. And then there's a whole host of specialized master's programs that are producing candidates with really compelling skill sets for these firms as well. So for example, masters in finance, masters in accounting, masters in data analytics, or economics, or political science. There's a lot of interesting options there. And this is becoming increasingly common both in North America, and it's already very, very common in the European market, where the two-year MBA is actually relatively less popular. So you see a lot of students out of those markets with masters in some of the topics we were talking about coming directly into the recruiting funnel for management consulting firms as well. Okay, so the third bucket is industry hires. First, let's talk about what I mean by industry hire. Generally, an industry hire is someone that joins a consulting firm after they've had maybe 2 to 3 on the low end to about maybe 6 years of experience in a particular industry, and they join the consulting firm usually as like a consultant, sometimes maybe a junior project manager or engagement manager. So that's what an industry hire is. Now, this category is exciting because it's a new category, and the consulting firms in the past that we talked about, they really were focused on hiring directly out of undergrad or directly out of business schools in the past, and then just growing that talent internally at their company, and that was their staff. And what's happened over time is that as these firms have expanded, they've been successful and they've been growing, they're starting to take on more and more implementation work as well, which means the nature of some of the work they're doing is more operational. And once you start doing more operational work, the experience that someone gains in industry, actually working in that industry, understanding the nuances of it, becomes really, really important. And so for that reason, all of these firms are now looking to industry candidates to fill their pipelines as well. And that opens up a ton of opportunities for the people that have the industry experience that these firms find really valuable and can marry that with a structured analytical thought process and approach. So for example, imagine you graduated from undergrad and went to work at a retail company like Gap for 5 years as an analyst. That might make you a really good candidate for a role as a consultant or maybe a junior project manager in the retail practice of somewhere like McKinsey or BCG. And this applies across all the different industry verticals that these firms do work in. So this is another great path that is growing quickly, and I expect to continue to grow in the future. Okay, so in conclusion, there are a bunch of different avenues into a career path in management consulting that don't involve an MBA. And if anything, those opportunities are growing rather than shrinking today, especially in the industry hires category. That said, if you're interested in an MBA, that is still a good route as well. The bulk of the candidates applying and going to these firms today generally are MBAs, and they will likely still be a big component in the future, even though the mix is definitely diversifying. So thank you again for watching this Rocket Blocks mini lesson. We have lots of great content coming out on the interview process and the career path on a weekly basis. So please go ahead and subscribe below, which means you'll get our videos as soon as they come out on a weekly basis. And thanks again for watching. Have a great day.